New Year's Eve and Day video right now. We have time to discuss a lot of topics, focusing a lot on the public relations. And like I said in my videos, I'm not here to give information. My rule is to analyze synthesis, justify why anti-thesis are misleading as a major component of misinformation as well. So we're here to discuss a lot of things, starting from the summary of the year 2021 and also what do we expect from the next civil year 2022. Like I said, the plethoric amount of topic ranging from the pandemic and the continuous COVID-19 war, the guidelines to follow up in terms of multilateralism and the new orientation in terms of politics that is related to governance and rule of administration. Many other things will be also brought here. So wanting to start with the notes from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation related to the year that we are wrapping up right now. So we have to remind that 2021 was a year that tested the world's optimism, and we need to keep ongoing in terms of many aspects. I want to speak first about China's successful elimination of malaria and its global impact through the achievement that shows that it's possible to eradicate the disease worldwide. Innovative Chinese approaches are already saving lives in Africa, which has 90% of the global malaria burden. Among the other things we can speak about, always from the Gates Foundation, the collaboratory and how sharing tools and technologies can shorten the timeline for global health in terms of R&D. Collaboration is the key to translating promising global health research into real-world solutions. The topic of geographically disturbed manufacturing capacity is needed for improved global health security. Indeed, it is the time to support developing countries in building the infrastructure, skills, and systems they need to develop safe and affordable vaccines for diseases that mostly affect poorer nations. The state of the world is something very interested to discuss here. Looking forward to joining the discussion with Jan Bremer and Cliff Caption, discussing the prediction, basically the risks for 2022, the top risks. I wanna go here and speak a little bit about this kind of topics, as it's gonna be related to many things that we'll speak about in the video. So the first trend we can invoke is the next great game, that is politicians versus tech companies. And the fact that now a key question, are the United States and the People's Republic of China locked from a new form of Cold War? Their governments behaved as if they are. But there is no predicting that Washington and Beijing will become more cooperative with one another, but that both will be too preoccupied with historic challenges at home in the upcoming years to wage a full-time international struggle, especially amid the COVID-19 pandemic. In Washington, D.C., the main worry will be for America's broken political system. The U.S. politics is becoming even more tribalized as TV and online media target politically like-minded consumers with hyper-partisan news coverage. Widening wealth inequality fuels the fire by separating white and non-white, urban and rural, the more educated from the less educated, deepening public mistrust. Beijing burdens centers on how to extend decades of economic gains while moving away from a growth model that no longer works, as higher wages in China and more automation in factories elsewhere cut deeply into China's manufacturing advantages. China is still a middle-income country. To reach the prosperity level of wealthy nation, it needs 6 to 7% growth for another 20 years. But the People's Republic of China must spend less in coming years to keep giant, deeply indebted companies afloat and more to care for the largest population of elderly people in history. and its leaders must accomplish this at a time when China's people expect ever rising levels of prosperity from their governments. The domestic distraction of the United States and the Chinese leaders will create new opportunities for European, Japanese, Canadian, and other political business leaders to contribute toward international problem solving, I suppose. But other governments aren't the only new players stepping into this power vacuum. Technology companies are fast becoming important geopolitical actors. That's a fact. We're entering a world in which economic winners and losers, election outcomes, and national security will depend on securities choices made by both governments and by the world's big tech firms. The idea is simple but transformative. Just as governments make the laws that determine what can happen in the physical world, tech companies have final authority in a digital world that's becoming both more expensive and more immersive. The biggest tech companies will establish sovereignty by defining the digital space in its boundary. And this means that the algorithms that determine what happens within that space and the terms and conditions that decide will get to operate in this world. How will tech companies try to expand their power? Some will behave as globalists by trying to reach consumers and influence politics everywhere. Others will act as national champions by aligning with the individual governments and their goals. Still, others will behave as techno-utopian companies that expect historical forces and tech innovation to help them replace governments in important ways. The relative success of these models over the next decade will decide how governments and tech companies share power over the longer term and whether democracy or autocracy will have the upper hand. So, what's to be done? Think adaptation, do not surrender. Steps can be taken to limit sometimes negative influence of tech companies in the political lives of democracies. But just as climate change can be limited but not avoided, so we must understand and adapt to a world in which governments and tech companies compete for influence over our lives. Very important topic. I will be looking forward to joining the discussion of G0 Media this Monday regarding this context of action. As I mentioned before, my involvement within the federal government of the United States will be more likely related to governance and the rule of administration. Now I want to get back to a parallel topic here and invoke basically the discussion of Elon Musk this week in a podcast. Starting with history, to join what Elon said, mankind can notice in general major shifts in history. An example, when moving from the medieval era to the Renaissance, then when moving from the Renaissance to the Industrial Revolution era. Since 1830, this has been the main trend of our history that itself has its sub-eras. We are living actually in the sub-era of post-World War II. And even the post-World War II has its own subdivisions. The most recent one is the one of the New World Order after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end, obviously, of the Cold War. But like I mentioned before, we have noticed major shifts towards a new era for the first time since 1830 during the 2010s. The COVID-19 pandemic turned these shifts into tectonic moves between quotes. Henceforth, and whatever is coming forward, we can say that the pre-pandemic world is in history books. Then there is us, standing before history, the children of the COVID-19 era, during it and even when and if it stops. Elon Musk brought quite a possible scenario, the one of turning into space flight civilization throughout the 21st century and the third millennium. It's also a challenge carried by Jeff Bezos and Sir Richard Branson's entities. The fundamental planning of the future of humanity is the key aspect to focus on right now in this context of action. Stephen Hawking's estimate applies here, I suppose. The R&D in this framework applies to the moon and Mars, but I want to ask Elon Musk about Earth-like planets, called also Earth analog. Asking that question regarding planets such as Kepler 69c, Kepler 186f, are they too hot? Or before even asking that question, are they reachable within the third millennium? So let's start from the beginning. We must be thinking about the limits of physics, the manufacturing issue that is very underrated, and the cost of supply chain. In example, raw material, machines, copper, etc. Complex questions emerge, therefore, regarding weight versus value, the constituting elements, or how you put every atom, what tools and instruments to approximate the perfect product prototype. All this must be studied before even going into aerodynamics. In this pattern, infrastructure for colonies or first Martians is too early to call, between quotes. The first starting point of physics concerns general relativity, velocity, amount of energy allocated, if I may, in order to guarantee travel success in space. A good point by Elon Musk when asked about the first Martian government that should be above all overcoming inertia of laws through a direct democracy instead of a representative democracy. It is related to my new focus on the United States politics, as well as the discussion that I will be looking forward to follow up on Monday. It's a little bit interdependent, but it's a very good point. It joins, like I said, not just what I said earlier, but also what I always mentioned regarding major shifts since the Industrial Revolution that are occurring. The United States, in example, having for the first time in history in 2016 a president that is not coming from the classic circuit, full stop. With the COVID-19 war, bastion of mankind history forever, the priority is elsewhere. I continue speaking with my close friends and advisors. My potential focus, like I said, in the United States public sector would be on the topics of governance and the role of administration for the third time in this video. I will say to Elon Musk that landing on the moon is 52 years old already, and we must step up as mankind to wrap up the topic on space. But never quit while you're ahead. PayPal is a way to understand the monetary system. Thinking of dollars as information is a good way to see it. Indeed, it's useless with no resource allocation. If currency increases, there is reluctancy to spend it. Among the other pertinent topics I heard from Elon Musk this week related to the Tesla bot, good for sustainable energy, industry, manpower, and housekeeping, comparing it a little bit on the theatrical word to the good side of the iRobots from the movie iRobots, and to Rosie Jetson from the famous cartoon. The nuclear power as a tool to generate electricity is also a good point, plus also the insightful analysis of Elon regarding radiations was invoked in this discussion this week. So many things to develop in this front. Like I said, as we say, 2022, a year of so many challenges besides relating to the COVID-19 pandemic in history. I want to move here to the United Nations work and Focusing first, like I said, on my international criminal court synthesis, still ongoing work on it for the year 2022, and getting back to the major actions that could have brought up some original work right now for the courts related to the trust fund for victims, an example, but also a focus and a review on so many aspects related to building supports, and that will include topics that are related to the victims, first of all, as well as the missions, the visits, cooperation agreements, high level meetings, engaging with legal professionals as well as academia. But among the other points that the courts can focus on here is the focus on the new principles, the access to justice, all this part, of course, of the summary of 2021 that will be added also to my synthesis of the new vision of the ICC. And like I mentioned before, the trust fund for victims is going to be a very important point in order to move forward. So among the other thing, while we're speaking about supporting victims, is the focus on the assistance programs, in example in the Central African Republic, Cote d'Ivoire, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Uganda. The issue of reparations, the TFV has engaged in 5 reparation proceedings in Katanga, Lubango, Al Mahdi, Tanga, and Owengen cases. So the Trust Fund for Victims continued providing assistance and reparations to victim survivors of atrocity crimes. That's a very important point to add up, as well as the focus on the rule played before survivors. 12,030 victims participated in the ICC proceedings in 2021. So looking forward 2022 in this context of action, and getting back also to the important point of the year when it comes to my monograph, counterterrorism. Undoubtedly, the establishment of the counterterrorism overall approach throughout the month of June, by citing that there is the global way that is led by the United States and the multilateral way led by the United Nations. The Counterterrorism Week was the pinnacle of the year when it comes to counterterrorism, from June the 21st to the 30th, indeed. Lately, if I want to go back just to analyze not all 2021 but just December, let's remember that we are working also on the month of December here and moving to January. The fact that from a seated technical perspective, the Security Council scheduled to adopt a resolution linked to UN seated as a seated mandate being considered by the Security Council for renewal, and CITED continues to play the unique role in supporting the Council and Counterterrorism Committee by focusing on the 2018-2021 legacy that has happened on December 21st. Among the other things that could be mentioned from the CITED perspective during this month is the work on a virtual roundtable event to wrap up its current analytical series on the impacts of COVID-19 on terrorism, counterterrorism, and CVE across the globe, that featured panelists from the Global Research Network. Very insightful discussion as well. And like I say, it gets added up to the hashtag Oil on Fire, which means counterterrorism, COVID-19 on counterterrorism, if I may. Herein also discussion related to countering the financing of terrorism, and from the CTC perspective, focusing on the topics of the Security Council reports related to the further development of the issues of counterterrorism at a worldwide level, as well as speaking on the legal and criminal justice issues from the seated CTC perspective, and having further discussion also regarding the integrating gender into the counterterrorism. Among the other thing to bring up as soon as the year starts is the information and communication technology in the context of action of counterterrorism when it comes to the matter of coordination. So these are some of the important things to bring forward while we're speaking about the vision of counterterrorism in 2022 and forward. Now moving to the peacekeeping, as I mentioned, here in December there was a lot of work related to the phases in the protection of civilians. Civilians have increasingly become the victims of armed conflict. In response, the Security Council has made protecting civilians a focus of modern peacekeeping. More than 95% of peacekeepers today are mandated to protect civilians, and there are a lot of reports to analyze in this context of action in order to have a better understanding how to deal with the situations on a practical scale, because like I said, it's an issue that is also involving the security of the peacekeepers. Focusing on the protection of civilian in UN peacekeeping, it's a handbook, the 2019 POC policy, and also protecting civilians in the context of UN peacekeeping operations, successes, setbacks, and remaining challenges. An independent study that is commissioned by the DPKO and UNOCHA. My point of interest working on the files of the UN peacekeeping in December were also related to the work of the police amid the pandemic. I've already mentioned the fact that the UN police assist with the reform, restructuring and development and host state police services and law enforcement agencies. Other duties include, of course, protecting civilians, helping to facilitate secure elections, and furthermore. And among the things I would recommend to study in this context of action, we could speak about some topics, some reports that I already mentioned in my tweets recently. Regarding the police planning during the COVID-19 pandemic. There is also the UN POL COVID-19 operational guidelines, the report of the Special Committee on Peacekeeping Operation that is dating from 2018, the second report of the Secretary General on UN policing in 2016, the UN Police Division review of 2016 as well, and further other documents that are basically describing the work of the UN Police Division. So from the UN sphere, I want to move back here. I've been invoking US politics earlier from a federal perspective. Besides the federal sphere in the United States, the focus at the state level will be regarding the states of New York and New Jersey by focusing on the rule of administration and governance as well. I'm working right now in the matter of the rule of the litigator for both states and trying to analyze the different parts from the legislature of Albany and Trenton. I received also information from California dating from Arnold Schwarzenegger's era. And for right now I leave it on the archives because, like I said, there's a lot of things to understand regarding the legislation at the level of Sacramento. Previously I oversaw state legislature of Ohio and Texas as well. All that within the perspective of a counter-terrorism effort from a federal, state and local levels. I invoked the latter earlier during the year 2021. The next Libyan presidential election is also among the highest priorities of my agenda. Like I said, I'll be keen and anxious to work on the counterterrorism strategy for Libya as the country is being rebuilt throughout the 2020s, slowly but surely. So we will be following up the process of the postponed elections soon enough. Concluding here with the news from the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and leader Kim Jong-un convening key party meeting ahead of the new year. So the Democratic People's Republic of Korea is hosting this week a key ruling party meeting. The session could serve as a venue to unveil the country's major policy directions for the year. The fourth plenary meeting of the 8th Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea, the WPK, was convened on Monday. The plenary meeting is to review the implementation of main party and state policies for the year 2021. The meeting is discussing and deciding on strategic and tactical policies and practical steps to dynamically guiding struggle of the party and the people to usher a new period of the development of socialist construction to the next stage. Kim Jong-un often makes major policy announcements around the new year, including in 2018 when he announced sending a delegation to the Winter Olympics in the Republic of Korea, and 2019 when he discussed his desire to continue talks with the then US President Donald Trump. Among the points that we could mention in this party meeting during the second day are related to the rural construction and infrastructure. The leader of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea stressed the country's rural development efforts after acknowledging the DPRK's tense food situation around 6 months ago. Kim has created medium and long-term development strategies that are in line with the realistic conditions and requirements of the times of the overall development and the style of socialist construction in the hope of enhancing rural developments. A new program on socialist rural construction, which was reported as the most scientific and revolutionary path for the issue, was initiated and has won the full support and approval of the meeting participants. Wednesday was the second day of the DPRK's ruling Workers' Party of Korea's meeting. Kim told senior leaders that the people's food situation is now getting tense, citing the looming COVID-19 pandemic and last year's typhoons.